let's take an interlude from covering new content and let's review what we've already learned, especially since the midterm. So first, here, let's talk about the differences between moderation and mediation, just conceptually. One thing that I don't think that I've mentioned yet that I find helpful when thinking about the difference between these two things is that moderation answers the question when two variables are related, and mediation answers the question why two things are related. So what is the mechanism by which attitudes toward a behavior impact the likelihood that we'll actually perform the behavior? What is the mediating mechanism? Why does that relationship hold? And the answer, according to theory of planned behavior, recall, is that we make plans, make intentions to perform the particular behavior. So the way in which attitudes toward a behavior, whether favorable or unfavorable, influence the likelihood of actually performing the behavior is through the mediating mechanism of intentions. So when you hear trigger words like mediating mechanism or causal mechanism, X is impacting Y through this other variable. Those are indicators that we're talking about mediation. Moderation, on the other hand, is when. When can we expect X to impact Y or to be related to Y? And the answer is at a certain level of the moderator, or depends on the level of the moderator. So moderation answers the question when X and Y are related, and mediation answers the question why X and Y are related. So I think that's very helpful. Another matter to keep in mind is that, and I hinted at it just now, and that is that mediation is a causal model. Moderation is not necessarily a causal model. Doesn't have to be. We can have in a moderation X impacting Y as a function of a third variable, a moderator. But the X and Y don't have to be causally linked. And in moderation, the IV and the moderator certainly cannot be causally linked. But in mediation, everything's causally linked. The IV is causing the mediator, which is in turn causing the DV to move in a certain way. So mediation is causal. Moderation is not, or doesn't have to be. Moderation is a conditional effect of X on Y. It's a multiplicative effect. Mediation is a more additive effect. So those are some of the differences, and think about, from your field, examples of each one of these types of research questions, and when you would use a moderation analysis to tackle the data versus a mediation approach. Can a variable be both a moderator and mediator in the same study? And the answer is no, it cannot. It can be both a mediator and a moderator in different studies. That's totally possible. But remember that as soon as we are making an assumption or a theory that our IV is causally impacting our moderator or vice versa, then we immediately have a mediation effect, not a moderation effect. So the reason that they can't be both is because of mediation being a causal modeling approach. If you have a categorical variable with 4 categories and a continuous moderator, what are the steps you need to take to prepare the data? So this is really important. This is probably going to be on the exam coming up. I want you to be able to walk through the steps. You don't have to do them in SPSS, but be able to walk through the steps in sequential fashion. So you have a categorical variable with 4 categories. So first we need a dummy code, remember, and we will have the number of categories minus 1 dummy codes. So we'll go ahead and create those 3 dummy codes. And then we will center the continuous moderator in that case. And then we will multiply that centered variable by each of the dummy codes, creating 3 more interaction or predictors, and there'll be 3 interaction terms. And then we will put all of those into a linear regression, we can do them either in simultaneous fashion, all in one block, or we could enter in the the 3 dummy codes. That's the main effect for the categorical variable, the continuous moderator, and so we'd enter that in one block, and then the 3 interaction terms in the second block. We could do that, or we can just throw them in all the same block. This particular question should trigger for you a type 2 heteroscedasticity issue, potentially, because we want to look inside each of those 4 categories and ensure that the spread of residuals around the line is consistent across groups. So before we even run the analysis in SPSS, which I've just outlined, we would need to check for heteroscedasticity using the ALT-MMR program on Herman and Guinness's website. And if there is if the assumption is not met for the homogeneity of residuals, then we would use the Alexander or James test to test the moderation rather than SPSS. So if we did it in SPSS, though, let's just assume we have a homoscedasticity, type 2 homoscedasticity in the data, and we run it in SPSS. What is our regression and residual DF? Okay, so let's say there are 200 cases in this analysis. And so we have how many predictor variables? So we have our 3 dummy codes, right, to fully represent those 4 categories. We have 1 continuous predictor, so that's all the main effects, and that is a K of 4. And then we have 3 interaction terms because we have that continuous variable multiplied by each of the 3 dummy codes. So that is, again, 3 dummy codes for the main effect for that categorical variable, 1 continuous main effect, so that's 4, and then plus 3 more interaction terms for a total of 7 DF, numerator DF, or regression DF. And then for the residual, there will be 200 minus 7 minus 1, whatever that is. So that's another thing that I really want you to know is that ANOVA table. Understand what's in the numerator and the denominator DF. And so it's very familiar to you. So you would know for any analysis that you do. Let's say we had 3 covariates we're adding to this analysis. So we would have the 3 covariates in the first block, right? So that's 3 numerator DF there. And then we had our 3 dummy codes and our 1 for the main effects, our 1 continuous moderator there. So we'd have 3 plus 4 more, that's 7 already, and then adding 3 more for the interaction terms, that would be a total of 10. Okay, because we have 7 plus 3 more now because we have 3 covariates. So we put our 3 covariates in the first block, and then all the other variables in the second block, or we could put our main effects in a second block and the interaction terms in the third block. It's totally up to you as the researcher. So there are different ways to do this. So come up with different scenarios and test like your classmates, come up with different ways that you could do this and talk about those. And then I think that you'll feel really prepared for the exam.